I would love it if you guys would follow us on social media, or if you already do, to engage with us, and that you're here today to hear Sean's startup story. And if you guys could please give him a warm welcome, we can go ahead and continue.
I'm not supposed to start a presentation with an apology, but yeah, we just got powered back up an hour ago. I've been all over the state picking up fertilizer and greenhouses. It's been wild. I've rolled into here. So it's gonna be more narrative. And when I've done presentations in the past, it's always been like educational. It's just like I'm gonna throw as much content as I can at you. This is us talking about me, so that's weird. I've never done that before in 5 years of doing this. So yeah, our startup story. We got started in this line of work. For me, it's been over 15 years. As a kid, I grew up in coastal Texas, and we had trips to the estuaries. We'd catch fish and nets, and like for me, that's just immediately sparked like an interest in ecology. And so I love being outside, Boy Scout, wilderness survival stuff, just anything where I could be outside, absolutely rad. And so as I got into school, I started really getting an interest in ecology and environmental science. I went and I did my master's in environmental science. And that's, really what I thought I would want to do is environmental consulting. And so I worked as an environmental consultant for several years, and it just wasn't very soul satisfying. I was helping residential developments expand around Houston and helping oil and gas permits. Companies get permits to fill wetlands, and it just wasn't really where my heart, it wasn't what I signed up for. So as I got married, Melanie, we got married, she's back with our baby Ayla. Sorry, third kiddo. We got married right as I was graduating from my undergrad and going into my master's, and was like, I'm really interested in this gardening stuff. And it seemed like a lot of environmental permitting work I'm doing, remediation work, restoration work is like putting a band-aid on damage that's already done. How do I just stop that damage from happening in the first place? So as I was getting into more sustainable and regenerative agriculture, Melanie was studying nutrition, and it was like, as she learned more about a holistic approach to nutrition and traditional ways of eating and preparing foods, our paths were converging. It's like, oh, this is just a better way to live life in terms of how we build the planet, how we build our bodies, how we build our communities, and make more localized food systems. So I started a small garden. I usually have a picture of it, but it's just like a little 4x4 raised bed. And that like lit something. And like Melanie thought she was going to lose me to the garden. And I went crazy. And like the whole garden was packed out. So we were in a tiny little, I think it was under 500 square foot home, like right in the middle of campus, basically. My office was here, my classes were here. The church we went to was on the other side of this, and we were in this tiny little fishbowl of a micro house in this little backyard. And I filled that space. And we had people over, people were so interested in what we were doing. We were doing this big vegetable garden stuff with just one of those little beds. And then we got chickens. I was raising quail in the garage, hatching in the sky. And I'm only sleeping nearest to me the whole time. And I had catfish and sorrel. We were doing my hydroponics, like having nuts in space. And absolutely was just like, this is what I want to do. I applied for 80 jobs getting out of grad school in just sustainable ag and couldn't get a phone call back. It's a very high demand job, and everyone wants you to have 10 years of experience and it's low pay. And that's just sustainable agriculture. So I kept doing environmental science and wound up moving to Houston. And I was like, I still want to get into agriculture. How can I start that right now? How can I start my farm business? And so I started beekeeping. I watched a couple YouTube videos, literally 2, and then I started removing bees from people's houses. I did that twice, and then I started buying honey and started charging people for it. And so by the time we were doing this, they were only harvesting our comb honey. That was like our first little pop-up event in my front yard. We had the whole neighborhood came out to buy honey. We had 30 beehives on top of our roof, just in Houston proper. And then eventually we got to about 100 beehives and had to move them out into the country. So yeah, we're doing that. The plan was to try and farm around Houston, and our house wound up getting put on the market. We were renting at the time, could not find a house to save our life. Looking at power outside of town, everything's going above asking price, like it's wild. And so Melanie's like, this isn't really what you want to be doing anyways. You should pray about it and just Google farm jobs. And I did, and this job for Heifer International as a farm consultant. And so they took a chance on me, I took a chance on them. We moved up here to Arkansas 7 years ago. And now we're like trying to get the family to move up here. We're not going back. The plan was to come up here, learn how to farm better, and then move back to Texas, but now we're not going anywhere. So we wound up selling my honey. I sold all the bees, I kind of kept the entity. And then we moved up to Arkansas. I worked for Heifer, did farm consulting basically around the state for various farmers. So got connected to all the vegetable and flower producers around the state. Probably at least 30 farmers I worked with regularly and went to their farms for the first year that I was here. And that was an amazing experience because I got to see how 30 different farmers did it 30 different ways. And then from that, be able to like, pick, I like this, I don't like this, I do like this, I don't like this, and then put together a farm for Heifer. This was all just a pasture. They were running cows on this. And then I was able to work on that for, I guess, 4.5 years and turn it into what you're seeing here. And we were doing close to $200,000 in vegetables wholesale. So like we were doing direct consumer. We probably hit 350 with 4 people on 3 acres. So we were like, so when people say that small farms can't feed the world, they're just wrong. Wrong. And so we can definitely produce a huge amount of food and do it organically. So I don't even know how to not farm organically. So that's all I've ever done. So while I was at Heifer, it was a great time of learning. Amazing people, but definitely saw there was still a need. There's a lot of nonprofits that are around the state that are trying to bring up the next generation of farmers, and it seems like every farmer was hitting a wall. We'd start cooperatives and try and like, well, if we create a market to buy the produce from the farmer, to buy the meat from the farmers, they would scale naturally and be able to scale their businesses. And every farmer's hitting that wall and stopping. U of A started a farm school, and a lot of those farm school graduates are still hitting that same wall. And so felt like I was seeing this happen and trying to figure out how do I get all those small scale farms to scale to mid scale. Because in Arkansas, we don't really have mid-scale vegetable producers in the United States. Everyone is either less than 5 acres or more than 100 acres, which no one is really in the middle. Most of the guys that are more than 100 acres are multi-generational farms. It's been in the family a long time. So you don't have people getting out of college, getting a loan, starting a vegetable farm. But if we want to satisfy, grocery stores and restaurants, like that's what we need. We need those mid-scale producers. So mid-scale is a challenge. Mid-scale organic is a challenge. And mid-scale organic wholesale is even more of like a goal. That's my vision for like what I want our farm to be. If we want to be that farm, then we could be an example farm, a flagship farm, and help others kind of demonstrate and replicate what we're doing. We're still years off from that, honestly. So in the meantime, my farmer is kind of how we're scaling. So seeing that need, the needs are the biggest thing is professionalizing the business, being able to hire people. Now that I own my own business and I'm scaling, that's what I'm running into is like getting that first hire is the hardest. Inputs was another thing. Until literally yesterday, there was no way to get organic nitrogen fertilizer in Arkansas. And I picked up our first load, and now it's favorable for Arkansas farmers. Boxes, things like that. All these things, they increase the cost of to the farmer. They're having to go to Missouri to get the things they need. Or they're having it shipped in for the cost of what the item is. And so if we can provide all those things locally, lower their expenses, and then they can become a profitable and that money towards labor or scaling the business. So that was a big need. High tunnels, which is the bulk of what I do. I built greenhouses and high tunnels, was another big need. And what I was seeing is that a lot of folks either didn't know how to leverage them well, like leverage them year round, or they're also getting ones that were either under-engineered or over-engineered. There's some greenhouse manufacturers from up north, and they're building them for blizzards, and then there's some greenhouse manufacturers down south, and they're building them for like Florida. There's no in the middle. So I redesigned our greenhouse and manufactured every part of it to be for our like kind of mid-south area. So it'll handle wind, it'll also handle snow, and designed to get all that heat out there too. So yeah, seeing that need, and it's a big need, and I'm just now starting to connect to folks to kind of help me along that journey. And I think there's more people in that nonprofit realm and university level realm that are starting to see kind of what I feel like I have my fingers on the pulse of over a couple of years of what, okay, we keep doing these beginner farmer programs and they're not going anywhere. But what are we missing out here? So launching Mindful Farmer, this is a slide of what I had when I started. We basically just took a little bit of our savings and went for it. I let Heifer put in like I put in like a 2-month notice to help them try and get another farmer kind of going in that space. And then immediately put it out there that we're building greenhouses, and that was what launched us for the first year and a half. Like that's what's really carried us, is building greenhouses, designing greenhouses, and installing them. But that's also, I realized that like my business can only get as big as I have boots on the ground during a week. So like if I had been greenhouse every single week of the year, gone every week, still my salary was basically capped unless I could bring on crews, unless I could offer other things that I could sell throughout the week. So building kind of on that idea of, well, I guess I'll talk a little bit about greenhouses. So I try to keep my overhead low. So I build the greenhouse in our front yard. That trailer behind me and here has like all of these like metal jigs on it, so I can bend the pipes, I bend everything by hand. And then and so obviously I don't have any overhead, and that's what's been able to help keep me competitive to these big multi-million-dollar companies that are doing greenhouses, and I can do it profitably for even cheaper than what they're doing. So I have been working like all by myself, and I'm just now getting to a place where I'm getting some farmers that I work with and have known from my heifer days, like contracting them out for a day or two of labor, and so get a second set of hands that already knows what they're doing has been really helpful. So yeah, that's what it looks like for the greenhouse. It's like, I think for that size, it takes 2 people 2 days. But to get the frame up takes about 10 minutes. And then everything else is like assembly beforehand and then finishing afterwards. So that's my designs. The other thing I realized too, working with Heifer, is I began like kind of trying to figure out and crack the question of like, why are there not mid-scale farmers? Why are small-scale farmers struggling? Many of the farmers I was working with were working 7 days a week. Their families were stressed. They still weren't making, what they felt like was an appropriate wage, livable wage. And so we talked about the sustainability of agriculture. If it's not financially sustainable, and if it doesn't attract the next generation, it's not sustainable in terms of a cultural or economic practice. Like if you could have all the solar panels, whatever, that's one aspect of sustainability, but it has to be able to continue in the future generations. And if you're like, hey, come be a farmer, you'll make no money and it works forever. Like, no one's gonna do that. So there's got to be smarter ways. And like, I have like a problem solver type brain. Everything's a puzzle on the crack. And so I tried to think of it as, if we just had the right tools and systems in place, then I bet these small farms could really take off. And there's a few guys around the country that have started to do these things. Elliot Coleman, and a lot of them in the Northeast. Jean Martin, Connor Crickmore. These are like farms that are on like less than an acre and doing like $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 in revenue. They're going directly to farmers markets. They're at the New York downtown farmers market. I'm sure they're getting $7 for a bunch of carrots. Good for them. But they're really smart guys that have built great systems. Connor Crickmore was a systems process engineer or something before he went into farming. So everything is a spreadsheet. Everything is a task ticket that you can see what to do. So they're these well-oiled machines. And I really love that idea. And I love the idea too of like kind of a minimalist approach. Like, how do we farm with the fewest things possible too? How do we have tools that do lots of different things? So then as I was at Heifer and working and trying to think through all these things, because I had basically, my task was to build this profitable farm under a nonprofit, using volunteer labor and not compete with any farms with 4 people overseas. It's like all these like, okay, how am I gonna figure this out? And the answer was systems and good tools. So I started making this notebook of all the tools that I wanted to make or felt like needed to be improved or better. And so now that the greenhouses have taken off, I've been able to focus on the tools. And so I'm taking the tools from that notebook that were just an idea and actually getting them to market. So working on patents on a few things that haven't hit the market yet, and then a few things have. This is our broad fork, and it's a multifunctional tool. It's ergonomically designed. I designed it specifically for women because most of my volunteers were women. And the other broad forks were either wooden and they break, or the teeth would bend, or they were like super heavy metal that like required all this like high shoulder. Like you need to be a linebacker to use it. And so I just designed this one. And so it does a lot of different tasks. It replaces about 3 different tools that we typically have, and it's lightweight, all steel in Arkansas made. So that's everything I make is fabricated in Faulkner County. The other thing is this drop seeder, and now I'm working with other companies to wholesale those. And it's a small acrylic device that we laser cut out of acrylic, and it uses a magnetic spring to like drop seeds just where they need to go on a tray. So we have those in all different sizes now, and that's been pretty cool. But like the companies I looked up to, Johnny Seeds is a really big one. Like they're gonna have that in the catalog this next year. So it's like feels like I'm finally coming full circle of like seeing things, and the cool thing about that too is like that'll be the cheapest drop seeder on the market. But I feel like, and the people I've talked to are like, why is that? Like, it's so simple. There's no moving parts. It's crazy. But yeah, so I'm just excited for people to be able to get their hands on that, and then we'll have them in different sizes. So gardeners, homesteaders, and farmers. And it'll probably, if you talk to me, I'll probably say that phrase a bunch. But I'm trying to appeal to a lot of different folks. You know, I say the mission of Mindful Farmer is to make the backyard garden the next generation of farmers. So whether they farm professionally or just garden like a farmer, that's what I want to see, where people are putting in half the amount of time, doing twice the amount of produce to do it, doing it sustainably. So that's the vision of all these tools, the tunnels, and the education that all come with that. This is Browning Welding up in Booster. They fabricate this one. Inputs, I mentioned this a minute ago. I've been working with Julia. Julia made this nice graphic for me. This is going to go on our bags of different fertilizers. It'll be all black and white, and then it'll be black in the segment of what that fertilizer is good for, whether it's a nitrogen fertilizer, phosphorus, microbes. And so, yeah, so we're offering feather meal, blood meal, bone meal, azomite, which is a trace mineral made out of volcanic ash. Working with another company here in Arkansas to do worm castings. And so basically be able to have everything that a small farm, garden, or homestead, whether you have like a few pots on a patio, or you have 5 acres of organic intensive production, to be able to satisfy everybody. And so we're shipping like 5-pound bags nationwide for shipping. So that's been like a big development, and something I definitely saw as like a need is there was one place that offered some of these things, and they shut down last year. And like I was getting phone calls from farmers and just like, what are we gonna do? I think so-and-so was driving up to Missouri to get a load. Can we like get him to bring some down? Or so now we have a local source of all this stuff. The other thing I do in my free time is content education. So I love teaching people. That was a big part of my job at Heifer, was also doing farmer trainings. And then the apprentices or the volunteers that we had was also doing kind of regular classes with them as well. So as I said, this is weird. I don't really talk about myself as much as I love just like teaching informative things. But I've loved teaching on Instagram and Facebook. That's been a really great platform to, one, connect people and then also help grow the business. So that's something I'm trying to figure out, is how to leverage the audience that like I'm gaining, and how to translate that into sales that will really take off. Like right now, we're at across platforms like almost 400,000 followers. So I need to figure out how to take 400,000 followers and make that into making a good living. Because so yeah, I've just been basically giving away information for free. And so we're working on things like ebooks. I do have a few courses that are out. And then more of like interactive trainings. So like a Zoom, this is Jeff's idea, that was a great idea. Like a 2 hours a week for 4 weeks intensive, help you plan your farm, and do like cohort of maybe 100 students. Use that, make a transcript, use that in ebooks, sell ebooks. So I'm just trying to like, because I've had such a crash course into sustainable agriculture and like had this unique experience that I got to work with 30 farmers, got to start a farm from the ground up. And I'm starting a tool greenhouse company from the ground up. I've had a lot of experience in a really short amount of time, and I'm trying to figure out how I could download information from my brain to someone else's, because I hate reading and writing. I'm just like all auditory, and so trying to figure that part out. I did just turn on subscriptions, so that's another revenue source for Mindful Farmer, that people can basically subscribe to our channel, and I'm doing additional content. So when I do a reel, I have 9 seconds to talk about something, and I'm doing like kind of a big topic. I'm even trying to like translate like what I learned in botany to like regular language, like on the fly, like while I'm filming something. And on a subscription, I'm getting a chance to do like a team video, let's do a deep dive into what this is and all these things. So that's giving me more opportunity to teach, and it's a very low effort for me. It's just downloading information. So that's kind of really good. So yeah, I'm just trying to figure out that component of the marketing and sales. When I built Mindful Farmer, I knew that I wanted to basically hit the ground running with a full suite of products, which is a bit counterintuitive, and maybe it's wrong. I don't know. I'm gonna figure that out. But I know, there's companies that like, I do this one tool. I'm gonna throw all the marketing in this like one tool, and like this company is this one tool, and then they try and add lines on afterwards. And I wanted to go from the approach of like, we're the one-stop shop. We're a small farm in a box. You can come to us, you get all your amendments, you get all the tools. We're designing the tools so we can be as few as possible. We're not going to try and sell you anything you don't need. I literally went through the other catalogs of other companies and just put big X's through everything. I thought stupid. And then how do I get 5 tools that do all the things we need on the farm? And then we're also doing the content education and information. So like Mindful Farmer is going to be that one-stop shop. And we started to gain that traction. Like now I'm starting to meet people like at conferences I've gone to. They're like, having tools and now we're buying your amendments, and I watch every video you do. And so like that feels good that we're like actually helping people make ground on starting small scale farms. And so one couple in particular, they turned their entire lawn front and back into vegetable farm. That's awesome. I love that. Because they might not be there forever. They may not grow that space, and then maybe they need 5 more acres, and then that's how they grow. They start small. Business needs and growing pains. Again, this is what I have. There's a lot of needs. This probably should have been like full of stuff. Yeah, the needs are great. My background is ecology, not business. So I'm really learning a lot about how to run a business. That's a big one. The other things that just I'm finding you on. Yeah, editing a video and it's just me talking. And I try to talk her on top of that. Like, good enough here. So yeah, so the growing pains and needs are like fresh line business. I've been working with Julia, who's New House Studios. She's helping me like, trying to think, look like I have my stuff together. He's like, you need a magnet for your car. You need it like so yeah, it's like being able to professionalize the business, restructure the business. I've been basically a single member LLC, but I need to go start hiring people. So that's all things that like when I first got into this, it's like wait a minute. And when we're in the beginning business, we just filed Schedule F, and it's pretty simple. And now everything's kind of getting a little more complicated. And then being able to hire someone, anybody, I'm looking for like a director of everything. Someone to like help take the burden off of like a lot of the administrative media communications organization.
Does it have to have knowledge of any farming?
And that's helpful.
It's helpful, but not required.
Not required,
Okay.
yeah.
You just say it to that microphone if we're watching,
Yeah.
so.
So yeah, so like that's a need. And then I do have folks that are like helping me kind of figure out the greenhouse building. I mentioned about the farmers as contractors. What would be awesome is to get to a place where I have teams, even outside of the state, where I can have a team for that can be called on to go do and install. Because there's just not enough people that do this. And that's why I got into it. I realized there's like a huge waiting list. And then now the USDA just released additional funding to build 300 additional high tunnels just in Arkansas alone. So my phone's been going on the hook. And I already get people backed up. And so I'm realizing there's a need I just can't meet, and that bugs me. Not even for the sake of growing the business, I just hate letting people down. Future plans. All this is really to get to this, like, and by this, I mean, you can see. How do I get out of the PowerPoint?
Thank you.
There we go. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the ultimate goal is a farm where I'm like that mid-scale wholesale working farm. Like if we can pull that off, we can help other people do the same, and we can help be a resource to get smaller farms to scale as well. Being able to offer like a full suite of products directly to people's door. We probably do half wholesale and half direct to consumer. This is 20 acres right here. We're like, and this is a dream property. There's an old lady in Tennessee who's trying to buy this stuff. And there's an additional 20 acres, but like this alone would make us the biggest organic farm in Arkansas, apart from that one guy that does commodity type grains and stuff. The vision is huge, and I know it's really a multi-generational effort or goal. This might not even be something that I pull off, but like maybe our kids can get to this place. And I think that kind of took some wrestling with that. Like I realized as a younger man, like, man, if I don't have this done by 25, I'm just like, it's like now I'm 35, and realizing like it might be when my kids are 25, like finally reaches what it is. But I feel like it could be one, huge for everything, but two, huge for the whole area. There's tremendous potential in the Arkansas River Valley and Mississippi River Valley to handle the production of vegetables for the country. California's drying out. They're scrambling to try and feed everyone. They produce 90% of the vegetables that we consume in just 2 valleys. If they lose their water supply, we're in trouble. And then not to mention the cost of having to ship that from 2 valleys in California all the way across the country. We're well poised to take that on. And that means literally trillions of dollars in revenue for Arkansas, Mississippi, Missouri, Tennessee. So like I'm thinking about this in a huge scale too. That like if we can demonstrate that this is real, you can do this, you can do it profitably, then it becomes something that's replicable. And if something that's replicable, we can finally change our state's economy and move not just from doing chicken and rice, but doing the full suite of more profitable crops like especially vegetables. So that's our vision, and I'd love to continue the educational space. Like once we have this farm, I want to be an open book and show people how we do it. We should show people how to replicate it. We want to have Airbnbs. We want to have a restaurant. This has been a little community that we've been talking or trying to get a hold of people. And there's this old abandoned grocery store that's been sitting there for like 30 years, just empty, and trying to get in contact with the owner to buy it. This would be just down the street from the farm. And we have a farm store, farm supply store for the farmer, where you can pick up everything you need, greenhouses, inputs, everything, and then we'd sell all of our inputs through here. my wife runs Mindful Kitchen, so you can follow her too on Instagram. Right now, we're mostly just doing elderberry syrup that we make from the honey. So like that's kind of our transition into other businesses as we realized like, she was making elderberry syrup at home. She's like, "Can I get some honey for this?" And then I was realizing like, it's like value add the honey and not have to worry about selling any honey if we just turned that all into elderberry syrup. So that's what we did. And last year we made 500 gallons of elderberry syrup. A lot. And so we sell that. That's also a whole other thing of what we do. We wholesale that around the state at different places. But with a farm, we can value add so many things that would typically be a waste product. We have carrots that are undersized, they get fermented into a carrot slaw. We have cabbages that are cracking, they get fermented into sauerkraut. And we can do those direct consumer and wholesale into grocery stores. So that was another, great experience about working with Pepper is that they were rolling out all these food safety requirements, and I was the guinea pig for the state. So like the state came out to the farm and they're like, "Okay, we're new to this too. We got to figure out how these laws work. We're going to walk you through the whole process." And so I got to learn about how to take something to the grocery store, how to get a kitchen license, all the food safety plans and stuff. I had to already do all that. So it's like the background, the framework is there. I'm just ready to pull it off. So anyways, that's an overview of Mindful Farmer, kind of where we've come from, where we hope to be going in the next few years. It's a big vision, it's an ambitious vision. But yeah, we're doing it. I have to regularly kind of remind myself when I feel discouraged. This is one of those weeks that felt a little discouraging. Getting those fertilizer probably took 8 months to try and get my hands on that, source it, get the permits from the state, and coordinate all the different things. And then every step of that process was a hiccup. The truck I needed was out. I had to get a different truck. I had to load differently. Finally, get it to the place where I'm going to store it, and that storm came through, ripped the roof off. So now I got to figure out how to cover it. Every obstacles at every turn. And so sometimes that can be discouraging, especially in farming. There's so much to be discouraged about at times. But there's so many things that I look back and like, we did it. Like we took a little bit of our savings and we kept our lights on when we're growing the business while adding a baby to the mix. And we're doing it, and so I try to remind myself of like, we're making it and we're also making an impact. When I get positive feedback from customers and farmers of like, "Hey, look, this has really helped me, increase our production this year." That makes it all worth it. So it's been hard, it's been good. And I as hard as it is, I still just wouldn't trade working for myself for anything. I'm a terrible employee. I just don't like working for people. So I've been working for myself for, I don't know, there's another option. We'll live in the van, there's something. So yeah, that was our plan. And then I talked about impacting kind of the system as a whole. This should take you to the website if you scan that. And then Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, there's all places you can find me. And we'll look up for questions.
So tell us more about the tool that you make. What kind of tools is it you have that you want?
I know, I should have brought it. I really should have brought it. Our website, our shop. I want to have an opportunity like have it local for like local pickup. Those are all things I'm trying to figure out. So the list of to-dos is extremely long. People from like other countries messaging, emailing regularly, like, "How do I get my hands on this?" It's like, I don't even know. Figure out how to ship to England or whatever. So you can all our products are on the website. If you do want to pick up local one, like it's just I can bring it to you here, or we can find a place to give it to you so I don't have to pay for shipping. But the tools are the drop seeder. So it's basically 2 plates that are kind of have misaligned holes. You shake the seed, 1 seed falls in every hole, and when you put it together, it drops 1 seed in the top of every cell pot. And so for our largest one, it can seed like 288 seeds with 1 click. So I can do 1,000 seeds just by doing that, versus doing it by hand. So that's going to save small farms a lot of labor, and then that's what's going to help them be able to scale more quickly. specifically for lettuce. Like lettuce is kind of the gateway drug for a lot of beginner farmers, because it's so highly profitable, there's a lot of space. So seeding the lettuce really quickly would be really good. The other thing are soil blockers, which I haven't designed. I import those from England, but I designed the drop seeder to fit them. So it's the first drop seeder that works for soil blocks, which is basically a way of making compressed potting soil medium to where you don't need pots and trays, which is full brick of soil. I'm working on a cultivator, and I'm really excited about that. That's been a long time in the works because I've had to design special tooling just to make it. So I had to design tools just to make the tool I want to make. But it's one cultivator that does like 9 different pests. And so trying to get like, I went about it thinking like, a shepherd has like a shepherd crook, right? Like that's like the go-to thing. It's the Swiss Army knife, like grab a sheep, grab a lamb, defend the whatever. I was like, I want something like that for a market garden. They're like, I'm calling it the razor cultivator. That they have that one tool and it's going to be everything. You just walk around the farm all day with that one tool and it does. So that's coming out soon. And then the broad forks are another component. But I have plans for things like root crop washers, root crop harvesters, electric tractors. All these things are just in like planning mode right now. So I need to build Mindful Farmer out, get all these things scaled, be more passive, and then begin to incorporate a lot of those things. There's nowhere in the US to get a lot of those tools. They do exist. I was trying to, at Heifer, I was trying to import some of them. Specifically for like our root crops, that was something I really felt like small scale farmers could do. It's do 3 acres of carrots, and you can knock it out of the park. There's tremendous need for it, and you could beat prices on the stuff coming out of wherever else that doesn't even taste very good. But you need a special tool to do it. That tool exists in Japan, other parts of Asia. They won't import it. I even talked to the company that makes it, and they have a US branch, and they said, we don't touch that stuff. The smallest you can buy is a 40 horsepower tractor. And it's because they don't want us to, because it's not very profitable to them. So there's micro combines, small little things you sit on that'll harvest like 1 acre or 2 acres of wheat or rice or anything like that. They only exist in Europe and Asia. They won't import them here. They're very difficult to import here. They want you to buy the $1.5 million combine that's 40 feet wide at a time. And so that's another huge obstacle that, like, when we talk as a university or nonprofits of like, why are people not scaling? Because there's a big system that doesn't want people to, is the honest truth. So we either have to make it or figure out a way to import it, or make something that does work. But like that's on my list of things to continue to develop. And kind of really the tool will scale as my business and my customers scale. So we'll start adding things.
What all I can do with the broad fork?
What all?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the broad fork was designed. One to be more ergonomic. Most broad forks have 2 handles that come upright. You get about here, you have to change your hand's position. And then, like I said, a lot of my volunteers were like more petite young women, kind of post-college gap year, and like literally didn't have the body weight to try and push that thing. And so I was like, there's got to be a better way to like, have better leverage or make it not as heavy. And so we have two different models. One is a small called the Finesse, and the other one big called the Brute. And so the Brute has an extra long handle, goes 1.5 foot into the ground. So it goes deeper than any tiller could ever go to lift and loosen the soil. So it's a single handle, so you get more of this action, and when you get back here, you just twist. So it's a lot more comfortable to work with. And then the Finesse has a T handle, to where you can be able to step on it, and instead of pulling the leverage from your shoulders, it pulls from your hips. So all you have to do is kind of sink your hips, and it'll open up the soil. Broad fork is basically a no-till approach to like lifting and loosening the soil, so you don't have to overwork it with a tiller. So you don't look at 3 acres, you don't need a tiller at all. It's all by the broad fork. And so most things are by hand. And the more you do that, the more beneficial your soil texture becomes, and the less you can use it because it becomes so soft. So like our garden right now, I can walk into any part of our garden and just put my hand down into the ground like that, and it's clay soil. And anywhere in our yard is a rock hard. It's good to just look in that space. The broad fork, I designed it to where ergonomic. You also put it over your shoulder because that T handle, so you can carry other stuff, which is also something that's kind of annoying. You like go out to the garden, like how do I carry this giant thing with like blades on it and other stuff? And then also space the teeth, to work with like basically a planting guide. So our small model is 6-inch spacing on the teeth, the big model is 8-inch spacing. So once you brought forth the bed, you just drag it backwards, it smooths the bed out and then marks the rows so you plant straight. When you plant straight, cultivate more straight more quickly. And so the cultivator tool is gonna mirror with that, but like it's the right width to go in between those rows. So I can broad fork, mark my rows, plant my carrots, wait for the carrots to come up, and then cultivate with that cultivator up between the carrots, and then I have no weeds the whole season. And so that, if I don't have weeds to manage, now I can do bigger and bigger plantings. So now I can plant an acre of carrots at a time. And it'd be a very manageable for one person. So that's really the goal with that, is to make all those tools interact with each other, compatible with each other, and kind of what made them work with other broadforks. It's just like, yeah, how do we do lots of things? And then we use the same broadfork to harvest the carrots. So it was the one tool to prep the bed, smooth the bed, mark the bed, and harvest the crop.
You're considered working with legislatures or anyone in government to help with your long-term plans of Arkansas and help with that situation?
I'm just now like starting to like have those conversations. Like the big thing I've needed, I think, first is like just funding. Like talked with like some conventional leaders that like at the time literally said like small farming just isn't sexy. Like literally those words. And so I was like, okay. Cool. Yeah, eating is not sexy. So there are some challenges there because it's just not like I even had a friend that brought over some guys from overseas, and it's like, hey, these guys are from the UK, they're looking for looking to invest in like agriculture. I was like, and there is some people big higher up like investing in agriculture, yes, buying farmland, things like that. But it's a very like low return industry. You don't have a high margins at all. Kind of grocery stores, very low margin industries. So it's a volume base. So the more acres you have, that's how you make money. And that's why all the farms across the U.S. have been aggregated to bigger and bigger farms owned by bigger and bigger corporations, because it's a volume game. And so the funding has been a big challenge. It's just like, how do I get do I need investors, do I need grants? Like I feel like grants would apply for like the bigger vision that I have for business. So I'm working on that now. I've partnered with some of the small business the name of the organization. They're going to help me with grants. And so like the scale of the business, I feel like then it's become more appropriate to like talk at that level about stuff when I have more like a proof of concept. But I am like talking with folks at that level of the university on other programs that are being done. So there's 2 grants that I'm basically on a panel like for outside consulting for, as they kind of frame these grants, and the total is $500 million for of these two grants. They're agricultural based grants for the Arkansas and Mississippi River valleys, and they're trying to figure out how do we get more scale farm, how do we get more vegetable farms, and how do we increase the number of organic farmers in Arkansas. With all these money, and then I've got calls from the state that just like, how do we do this? Like we really don't know. It's the ones that are trying to do it at this scale. And so I'm grateful to be in that position to begin to like have those conversations with folks and like, well, we need to support businesses. We need if all of a sudden we had a bunch of lettuce producers in the Arkansas, the Delta, we need houses that can handle that volume of greens. We need specialized equipment that harvest those types of greens. We need specialized repair people that repair the specialized equipment. We don't have any of that stuff. So that the barrier is like really, really huge. So those conversations are really like just starting at the state level in terms of like, how do we do this? Because we've just been so chicken rice form for so long. So yeah, there's a lot of
do you have any patents on any of your systems? And do you look to like franchise, like scale franchising?
I haven't looked at franchising. wholesaling, like wholesaling our tools to other folks, but I gotta get costs down on those, so I need to get a bigger scale. Patents, I think I want to patent some things, not others. I've gone back and forth with the drop seer about patenting and talking to people in the industry and how much it costs versus its risk for actually being duplicated. Because to make the mold for one of those plates, like I had a company that we should just injection mold this. It costs $10,000 per mold and 30 molds. It's $300,000 investment for a specialized tool that we won't sell that volume of. So anyone I've talked to, they're like, we're not going to touch this thing. You make it, we'll wholesale buy it from you. Because the cost of a patent could be $1,000. And so I don't have that to like tie up in IP. So some things I think I'm gonna risk it, and if I learn my lesson, I'll learn my lesson. But for the most part, I think that's also why I wanted to launch the brand of Mindful Farmer as a not a lifestyle brand, that's something that weird. Where people can identify and see themselves in Mindful Farmer. If you're wearing Mindful Farmer hats because you're planning to be a Mindful Farmer. Mindful Farmer is somebody who grows thoughtfully, grows with deep consideration towards our community, the health of our bodies, and the health of the planet. And so if I can make that, then even if someone comes out with the same tool a little bit cheaper, people will generally still support the person that made it, and I brand that identify with it. And so that's also another value in trying to think, I'm learning, and trying to add the full suite of products at the same time. Because now they can get everything from me and then get a shirt and hat to match, you know. So I think that will kind of help on the IP side. The cultivator, I am gonna wait, no one's seen that because I am gonna get a patent on that. Because I would like to wholesale and do like Lowe's, Home Depot, Ace Hardware. Go real good. So it's like that would probably be one to like kind of leave the small farm and try and go like see how big I could run with that. So that one I will get a patent on. Like 2 people that I'm kind of just now starting that conversation. Any other questions?
There any on?
No, I do have a question for you though. Did you grow up farming?
No.
Really?
No, my parents think I'm crazy.
Okay. I mean, these Arkansas people, they're, you know, they probably don't, but that's okay.
Yeah, well,
I love it.
yeah, I was interested in the science component of it. And so if you watch my YouTube stuff, Instagram stuff, it's kind of from that science ecology
Mhm.
slant. Gosh, they not having that multi-generational background, I definitely see like how it'd be helpful to be like
Right.
on that farm. You know, if I work with someone like, yeah, we have 700 acres in the family, we're trying to figure out what to do with it.
They probably have in some ways not have had that experience though, because I feel like a lot of people grow up on a farm and they see how hard it is and they say, I never want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to go sit at a desk and
Yeah.
never do it again.
Or escape the generational thing. This is something I'm trying to be mindful of. If our kids work for us, is like letting them make their own mistakes and not being like, no, you have to do it my way.
Right.
Because I've been doing this for 35
Yeah.
years, so you gotta do it this way. Because that gets you trapped in areas where the next generation can't grow and change things.
Yeah,
or adapt.
you come up with all these new ideas that
Yeah.
have not been based on what your dad or mom taught
Yeah.
you growing up.
Yeah.
And
And so I'm in some ways thankful that like I've been placed in this opportunity to kind of think everything from scratch
Mhm.
and like totally reimagine farm. I'm not trying to do it like my dad did it.
Right.
Or things like that. So there's advantages and disadvantages to both. So that's, yeah.
it's interesting.
One more.
Sorry. So like if like someone has some acres that they want to utilize and monetize, how do they probably get started with this?
Yeah, and that's still a puzzle I'm trying to fix, solve. Because with agriculture, it can be so challenging, and what I'm also seeing is like a farmer is a very specific person. You have to wear like every single hat, be able to fix everything. You're also your own accountant, your own bookkeeper, your own PR person, your own HR person. And you have to be an entrepreneur. And I realized with like a lot of with the farmers we were partnering with, the potential farmers we were partnering with some of the nonprofits like I did, some of those people were not the person for that job. Not everyone is cut out for this. And so that's where I run into sometimes people are like, hey, we want to hire you to like get us started in this farm. And I'm like, I don't know that I can do that because it depends, are you willing to like go 100% into it? And do you have the skill set to succeed with it? So that's where it gets really, really challenging because I don't want to give someone the runway to crash their own. You know, and so that is a challenging component of it. And then in Arkansas, there's not been as much work yet done connecting people. So there's like land trust organizations that, you know, someone has land that's been a farm, they want to continue to be a farm, they can sell the rights to develop that to a land trust, they hold it in perpetuity, so it has to only stay as a farm. If it's sold, it can be bought and sold, but it's priced at an agricultural rate, not a residential rate. So it'll stay a farm forever, no matter who owns it. We don't really have organizations like that. There's one that's starting in Northwest Arkansas, but they're literally just starting. So, but if we had more of more programs like that, then you could have someone who's like, you know, I have some, you know, I inherited 700 acres. I love it. I have a lot of memories here. I want to stay a farmer. I can put that in conservation or trust or something to protect it, but I can still lease it out to other beginner farmers. The beginning farmer then knows that that's not going to be developed into a house the second he decides to invest $10,000 in you know, infrastructure, which has been one of the big hangups that I think a lot of large organizations have missed is that for farmers, soil is your infrastructure. And so like you can easily like on a few acres, I can easily spend 10 grand just on soil limits. And then the next year the leasee could be with that, and the leaser could be like, hey, yeah, it's gonna be houses. And I'm just out, you know. And so that's what's kept people from renting, it's kept us from wanting to rent. But if it was in a trust or an easement, conservation easement, then you know that that's not going anywhere, and there's very little risk of you losing your money if you do invest in infrastructure at that space. So yeah, we just have a lot of space to grow in that avenue. But there's, you know, California's been doing a lot of that. Northeast does a ton of that. They're probably like 25 years ahead of us in the small farm local foods movement. But the good thing about that is we don't have to fail from scratch. We can like learn from what these other parts of the country are doing and seeing what works and do some of those things.